I don't know why her words stuck with me the way they did. Maybe it was the way she said them, soft, distracted, like she didn't care what I chose. Do what you want, she'd murmured. And I did. Or, I tried to. But the stupid truth is, ever since that day, everything I wanted kept circling back to her. The whole thing started on a Thursday evening at Kahn's Auto and Repair, the kind of place where the fluorescent lighting hums loud enough to fill the silence you don't want to sit with. My hands were covered in grease, my shirt sticking to my back, and I was half counting the minutes until closing when her car rolled in. A silver sedan, older model but taken care of. Exactly the kind of thing I expected a calm, organized woman to drive. She stepped out before the engine even died. Not rushed, just purposeful. The way people move when they've spent years being the adult in every room. I'd seen her once before, a month back maybe. Same quiet confidence. Same way of looking directly at me, but not into me. Like she'd trained herself not to stare too long at anyone. Something's ticking under the hood, she said, standing a little to the left of me, as if she didn't want to take up too much space. It's probably nothing, but I'd rather have it checked. Her voice had that soft scratch, the kind that comes from long days and maybe too much coffee. It made her sound tired in a way that felt earned. I nodded and wiped my hands on the nearest rag. I'll take a look. She watched me work, not hovering, not impatient, just present. I could feel her eyes on me every few minutes, then feel them flick away when I glanced her direction. There was a rhythm to it, a push and pull neither of us acknowledged. The ticking turned out to be a loose bracket. Nothing dramatic. 5 minutes with the right tool, and it quieted down. When I told her, she breathed out. A small exhale, like she'd been holding more than just worry about her car. That's good, she said. Fix it properly, though. I don't want it surprising me later. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She silenced it without checking. Do what you want, she said absently, gesturing toward the engine. Whatever you think is best. Something about that hit me wrong. Or right. I'm still not sure. It wasn't permission. Not really. It sounded more like someone who'd spent years making choices for everyone else, and for once didn't want to make another one. I'll handle it, I said. And she smiled. A real one this time. Brief, but warm enough that I felt it in my throat. While I tightened the bracket, she wandered the shop with her arms loosely folded, tapping her fingers along her elbow in a distracted rhythm. Her nails were short, unpolished. Practical. Her hair was tied up, but a few strands kept slipping down, brushing her cheek every time she turned her head. She didn't bother fixing them. When I finished, she came closer than before, almost shoulder to shoulder. I could smell something faint on her, something like jasmine mixed with old paper. The kind of scent you notice only when someone is close enough that you start wondering if you're imagining it. How much do I owe? She asked. I shrugged. It was barely 10 minutes. Her eyebrow lifted. That's not an answer. It's nothing, I said before I could think. Just come by if anything else feels off. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavier than that, but not unpleasant. She looked at me for a moment longer than necessary, lips parting as if she was about to say something, and changed her mind halfway. Then she nodded slowly, almost like she understood something I didn't. Or maybe like I had told her something without meaning to. When she left, the shop felt louder, the lights sharper, the air emptier. And that stupid sentence, do what you want, kept replaying in my head the rest of the night. I don't know why. Or maybe I do. Maybe it was the way she looked back once, just once, before driving away, like she was waiting to see if I'd notice. I did. And that's the moment I haven't been able to stop thinking about. I didn't expect to see her again so soon. 2 weeks later, just as I was closing the shutters, her silver sedan rolled up and stopped a little crooked, like she hadn't meant to turn in but did at the last second. The engine idled too long before she cut it, and when she stepped out, she didn't carry that calm, organized aura this time. She looked distracted. Not messy, just off. Like her thoughts were running ahead of her body. Sorry, she said, brushing her hair back even though the wind wasn't pushing it. I should have come earlier. I just forgot. Her laugh was small and uneven. Not practiced like before. I propped the shutter halfway open again. You're fine. Did something happen with the bracket? No. The car is fine. She leaned against the fender, arms folded, shoulders tight. I just needed, I don't know, someone who knows what they're doing to check a sound I might have imagined. You imagined a sound? I asked, trying not to smile. The corner of her mouth twitched like she knew she'd walked into that. She didn't respond, though, just tilted her head away, eyes on something far beyond the parking lot. That's when I noticed her hands, the way she pressed her thumb into her palm, over and over, like she needed the pressure to stay steady. Her nails tapped softly against her skin, a quiet, restless rhythm. "Pop the hood," I said gently. She hesitated, actually hesitated, fingers hovering near the handle, shoulders pausing mid-breath, like she was deciding whether she really wanted to be here, or maybe whether she was allowed to be. Then she opened it. Nothing was wrong with the car. I could tell within 10 seconds. But I checked everything anyway, pretending there might be a hidden issue while I tried to understand why she looked like someone who'd pushed through the whole day on leftover strength. "You're tired," slipped out before I could stop myself. She blinked, slow. "Is it that obvious?" "Not obvious," I said quickly. "Just in your eyes." She looked away again, not offended, not embarrassed. Just softer, like the truth had landed on a shelf she wasn't used to opening. "My day was heavier than usual," she said. And I didn't want to go home yet. That was the closest she'd come to being vulnerable, and I felt something in my chest shift. Not excitement, not sympathy, something quieter. I stepped back from the engine. "Your car's fine." She exhaled, but it wasn't relief. More like she'd been hoping I'd find a reason to keep her here longer. Or maybe I was imagining that. She hovered beside me, not leaving. The shop was dim now, shutters half closed, only one light buzzing overhead. Her face was half in shadow, half in warm yellow glow. It made her look younger and older at the same time. "Thank you," she said, almost whispering. "You always make things feel less complicated." "I don't do much," I said. "You do enough." There was a pause, long, stretched thin, where neither of us stepped back. Then she touched the edge of the hood, fingers brushing mine for the briefest second. Not accidental, not planned, just real. And when she pulled her hand away, she looked at me like she'd just crossed a line she wasn't sure she should have crossed. I'm still thinking about that look. The third time wasn't planned by either of us. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. Rain had been falling since afternoon. Not dramatic, just steady enough to make everything feel slower. The shop was already closed, tools locked away, lights dimmed. I was wiping down the counters when someone knocked, a quick rhythm that didn't match the usual impatient customers. It was her. Her hair was damp, not soaked, like she'd walked fast from her car, but refused to run. A thin navy shawl clung to her shoulders, and there was a tension in her jaw she didn't bother hiding this time. "Is this a bad moment?" she asked. No, it probably was, but the word came too quickly for either of us to pretend. She stepped inside, dripping faintly onto the concrete. The smell of rain on fabric filled the space, clean, a little cold. She didn't explain why she was here. I didn't ask. She just stood there, taking in the half-lit shop like it was easier to breathe here than wherever she'd come from. She rubbed her forehead gently, eyes closing for a second. "I got a call I didn't want to get." That was all she offered. Still, it felt like more than she meant to say. "Do you want to sit?" I asked. She laughed under her breath. "I don't think I'm staying that long." But she sat, on the metal stool near my workbench, crossing her legs slowly, as if her body needed permission to relax. I stayed a few feet away, pretending to organize tools that were already organized. Silence settled. Not heavy this time, just fragile. She glanced at me, once, then again. "You're very quiet tonight. You seem like you needed quiet." Her lips parted, like she was ready to say something real, something she'd regret in the morning, but a vibration cut through the room. Her phone, face down on the stool beside her. She didn't pick it up, didn't even look. The buzzing stopped, then started again. She swallowed. "This is why I drove here." I just didn't want to answer. A name flashed on the screen before it went dark again. I wasn't trying to see it, but I caught the first letter anyway. "Is it someone important?" I asked. She snorted softly. "Depends what you mean by important." Her shoulders dropped a little, the guard slipping. "He's someone who still thinks he gets a say. Someone I'm trying to unlearn. The shop felt smaller suddenly. I moved closer without meaning to, step by step until the rain hitting the metal roof was louder than my heartbeat. She looked up at me as I approached, not moving back, not moving forward, just holding her breath like she wasn't sure which direction she wanted. I shouldn't be here, she said quietly. Then why are you? The question came out softer than I intended. Her eyes flickered. Surprise, hesitation, something else I couldn't name. She opened her mouth, almost whispering something like, because being here feels easier, but the truth got stuck somewhere between her throat and her pride. Lightning flashed outside, bright enough to wash her face in pale silver for a heartbeat. She inhaled sharply at the sound of thunder, just enough for me to see her mask slip again. I reached for the stool beside her, not touching her, not even close, but the air between us shifted. She didn't move away. For a second, one long, stretched out second, her knee brushed mine. Not on purpose, but not exactly accidental either. She looked down at the small point of contact. I did too, and it felt like the whole moment was leaning forward, waiting for one of us to close the inch that shouldn't have existed. She exhaled shakily. Don't, she whispered. But her knee didn't move. The rain didn't let up. If anything, it grew harder, pounding the metal roof so loudly that everything inside the shop felt strangely muted, like the world outside was too busy falling apart to overhear what was happening between us. Her knee was still against mine. Barely. Just enough to be felt. Just enough to make breathing feel like a decision. She finally pulled back, but only by an inch, as if she didn't want to break the contact completely. Just loosen it before it became something she couldn't explain later. I shouldn't have come here, she said, voice thin, almost brittle. You said that last time. I mean it tonight. She ran a hand through her hair, pushing damp strands behind her ear. Her fingers trembled halfway through the motion, so subtle she probably assumed I wouldn't notice. I noticed everything. The tightness in her shoulders. The way she kept clenching her jaw before speaking. The small, shaky inhale she tried to hide when our eyes met. You can tell me what's going on, I said. If you want. Her laugh was soft, humorless. That's the problem. I don't know what's going on. With me. With you. She gestured vaguely at the air between us. This. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We just looked at each other, too long to be polite, too honest to ignore. The silence felt like a third person sitting with us, breathing, waiting. Finally, she said it. What are we doing? Not angry. Not accusing. Just tired. The kind of tired that sits deeper than sleep. I swallowed. My mouth felt dry. I don't know. You do, she murmured, eyes narrowing slightly, but not unkindly. You're young. You don't say things unless you mean them. You don't look at people unless you're trying to understand them. And you, her voice caught. You look at me. I didn't know what to do with my hands, so I shoved them into my pockets. You come here. Late. In the rain. After calls you don't want to answer. Her breath hitched. We were both exposed now. No pretending. No shrugging it off as coincidence. I didn't plan this, she said. Any of it. I don't even know what version of myself I am around you. Maybe the real one. The words came out before I could take them back. She stared at me, eyes flicking down to the floor, then up again, searching, weighing, almost bracing herself. That scares me, she whispered. The thunder cracked again, loud enough that we both flinched, but neither of us moved away. You're not doing anything wrong, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We're just talking. That's not all we're doing. She didn't say it with shame. She said it with the quiet fear of someone who'd spent years knowing exactly what lines existed in her world, and suddenly discovering one she hadn't seen coming. The phone buzzed again in her bag. She closed her eyes as if the sound physically hurt. Don't answer it, I said softly. She opened her eyes and looked straight at me. Really looked, with nothing held back. That's exactly why I should, she whispered. And then, almost breaking. Because if I stay here another minute, I don't trust myself to leave the same way I came. She didn't leave. Not right away. She stood, walked a few steps toward the shutter as if she meant to go, then stopped. Her back to me, arms wrapped tight around herself, head bowed like the weight of her own thoughts was heavier than the rain pounding outside. I got a voicemail earlier, she said quietly. Before I drove here. I didn't move, afraid any sound might make her shut down again. It was from my daughter. I blinked. Not because I was shocked she had a kid, I'd suspected as much, but because of the way she said the word daughter. Like it was both a comfort and a bruise. She's 22, she went on. Old enough to know better. Old enough to tell me things I'm not prepared to hear. She laughed once under her breath, but it wasn't amusement. More like disbelief trying to stay alive. She said I've been lonely. A long pause. That I pretend I'm fine. That I don't let anyone close anymore. She turned slightly, only enough for me to see her profile, the curve of her cheek, the way her lips pressed together like she was trying not to say too much. I didn't respond to her, she said. I just sat there, listening. Her fingers were gripping her elbows so tightly the knuckles had gone pale. What did she say exactly? I asked quietly. She hesitated, not because she didn't remember, but because repeating it made it too real. She said I've been living like someone who lost something she doesn't talk about. I felt something shift inside me. Not sympathy, not curiosity, something deeper, a recognition of the kind of hurt people hide in the spaces between sentences. Did you? I whispered. Lose something. She turned fully then, slowly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to face me with the truth. Someone, she corrected. A long time ago. Her voice dropped, barely audible. Someone who made me feel alive. In a way that terrified me. The air thinned between us. He left, she continued. Or maybe I pushed him out. I still don't know which version hurts more. She walked past me. Only 2 steps, but it felt like she was moving through years instead of feet. She stopped near my workbench and touched one of the metal drawers with the tips of her fingers, not opening it, just grounding herself with something solid. You remind me of him, she said. She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't have to. The room went completely still. Not the flattering kind of remembrance. Not, you look like him, or you sound like him. This was different. Her voice had a soft fracture running through it. He was younger too, she added. Not by as much, but enough that it felt like we were riding on borrowed time. My chest tightened, not with jealousy, with something sharper. The echo of a past I didn't belong to but suddenly had to compete with. Is that why you come here? I asked. Because I look like something you already lost. She flinched, not dramatically, just a tiny shift in her mouth, a quiet flicker of pain. No, she said. That's the part that scares me. She finally met my eyes, steady, unguarded, almost breaking. It's not who you remind me of, she whispered. It's how you make me feel again. For a few long seconds, neither of us moved. Her confession hung between us like something fragile, not meant to be touched too quickly, or it would break. The rain softened outside, trading its hammering roar for a muted, steady whisper, as if even the sky realized we were on thin ice and decided not to interfere. She exhaled first, not a dramatic sigh, more like a release she'd been holding for years without noticing. I shouldn't have said that, she murmured. You should have, I said quietly. Her eyes flicked up, searching my face for judgment, pity, anything she could push away. She found none. Or maybe she found too much honesty to handle, because she looked down just as fast. This is strange, she said. You and me. All of this. I know. And it shouldn't continue. I know that too. Her laugh cracked, a little uneven. You're supposed to argue with me. I can't, I said. Because you're right. That was the moment something shifted, not a breaking, not a confession, just an understanding. A strange, shared acceptance that whatever was happening between us wasn't accidental anymore. It wasn't rain or coincidence or bad timing. It was us, standing in a half-lit workshop, refusing to step away. She leaned back against the bench, shoulders dropping, tension finally slipping from her posture. I moved closer, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Her breathing changed, barely noticeable, the slightest catch at the top of her inhale. I rested my hands lightly on the edge of the workbench beside her, not touching her, just anchoring myself in the same space. Close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her skin in the cool shop air. She tilted her head up, eyes meeting mine, not challenging now, just open. Tell me what this is, she whispered. Not a demand, a quiet plea. I swallowed. Something we're both pretending we don't feel. She closed her eyes, just for a heartbeat, like the truth landed somewhere deep and tender. When she opened them, her voice was softer. What do we do with it? Nothing, I said. Or everything. I don't know. She let out a small breath, half a laugh, half a tremor. That's not helpful. I'm trying to be honest. I know. Her gaze drifted over my face, settling somewhere near my mouth before darting away again. You always are. A long silence followed. Not tense this time, just quiet, warm, heavy in a way that felt safe. The kind of silence you grow into, not escape from. Her hand was resting beside her on the metal surface, fingers curled slightly inward. Mine weren't even an inch away. Slowly, painfully slowly, she uncurled her hand, letting her fingers drift closer until they brushed the side of mine. Just a whisper of a touch. Barely anything. But it was everything. She didn't look down. She didn't comment. She just let our fingers rest there, touching at the edges, as if that tiny point of contact was all she could allow, and all she was ready for. I don't know where this goes, she said softly. I don't either. But I don't want to run from it tonight. Her voice trembled on the last word, and finally, she let her hand slide into mine. Not tightly, not claiming, just fitting. Like something that had been waiting to happen in the smallest, quietest way. And in that small, impossibly gentle moment, I felt everything collapse inward, not falling apart, but falling into place. Into her, into us, into whatever this is becoming. I think about that night more often than I probably should. Not because it was dramatic, it wasn't. Not because something explosive happened, it didn't. It was quieter than that. Softer. The kind of night that doesn't hit you all at once, but slowly writes itself into the corners of your memory until you realize it's become part of who you are now. Looking back, what surprises me most isn't the moment our hands touched. It's everything that came after. She didn't disappear the next day. She didn't pretend it was a mistake either. Instead, she showed up differently. Not in the shop, not unannounced, not running from something. Just present. She sent a message first. 3 simple words. I'm still here. I read it about 15 times. That was the start of something neither of us tried to name. Not romance, not a secret, not a fantasy. Just 2 people choosing to show up for each other without knowing where it would lead. When we met again, in daylight, without rain or silence pushing us together, she didn't look away the way she usually did. She didn't hide behind casual comments or practical questions. She stood there, steady, watching me like she was trying to memorize the parts of this that felt real. I've spent a lot of years, she told me later, believing that second chances only belong to younger people. It wasn't a confession. It was an unlearning. And I realized something too. I'd been waiting for a feeling that made sense, something neat and predictable, something that fit my age and everyone's expectations. Something measured. But she wasn't measured. And I wasn't predictable. We weren't supposed to fit on paper, yet somehow we fit everywhere else. In the pauses of a conversation, in the way she softened when she let herself laugh, in the way I stopped pretending I didn't care. Loving her, in the quiet, slow-burning way it grew, didn't feel like falling at all. It felt like landing. Like someone had finally turned the lights on in a room I'd been walking through in the dark. And she changed too. She stopped apologizing for her past. Stopped flinching when her phone buzzed. Stopped shrinking herself to make her life easier for everyone else. At least with me, she let herself be whole. Maybe that's what love really is. Not a promise, not a label, not a dramatic leap, but the slow courage to be fully seen by someone who could leave and deciding to stay anyway. We still don't call it anything. We still move slowly. Some days she's distant. Some days I'm nervous. Some days we meet in the middle like we never learned how to be anything else. But it's real. And sometimes, when she thinks I'm not paying attention, she'll reach for my hand the same way she did that night. Soft, careful, certain enough to try. And every time, I feel that quiet collapse all over again. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?